We all have challenges in life: sadness, broken relationships, anger, bullying, grief, and isolation. But there is hope. Together, we can learn how to bring back joy, re engage with life, restore relationships, and to be alone without being lonely. Welcome to Psychology Talks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Psychology Talks. We are talking today about resiliency during COVID-19 quarantine and after. And so we have a wonderful expert with us. Her name is Dr. Susan Stutzner. She is a counselor as well as an educator. She is also a researcher in the area of resiliency. So she's going to have lots of great information for us today. So Susan, thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us about resiliency. What is it and why is it important right now?
All right, well, resiliency is often defined in a number of different ways, but probably the most concrete explanation would be it refers to how we bounce back or recover from a situation that is challenging or difficult. And people are finding that their life has changed quickly, unexpectedly, and they may not know how to help themselves or what to do.
So how does someone display qualities of resiliency during this time?
What I would say is that the look of resilience is about really understanding what type of skills and approaches help me with what I'm going through, okay, that help me feel less anxious or less depressed or upset, or things that help me move forward. Okay. A part of that is being in the present, in today.
Okay. And so how does someone problem solve their way through that? How do they figure that out for themselves?
As a part of my research, what I ask people to do, is to try to take as honest of a look at themselves and their life as they can, kind of in a holistic way. Mm-hmm. Breaking that down, what that looks like is what parts of my life are going well versus which ones maybe aren't or aren't going as well as I would like them to. Mm-hmm. So that might be a person's personal life, it might be relationships, it could be social, financial, employment. And I suggest this if a person, because the question has come up that people say, well, Susan, I want to learn about resilience, but I don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. So we suggest to maybe just pick one part of your life to help guide your efforts rather than trying to change everything all at once.
Okay. So what would be some of those critical things that someone can target right now during the current pandemic?
If I was to think of something that I went through previously that was hard, how well did I handle that? In other words, what types of strategies or skills did I use to help me through that? And can I draw on some of those for our current situation? Or something like, okay, if I'm just trying to figure out how to get by today, this week, what are some skills that I know how to do? And let's start there. Because I think we can always expand them, but it's helpful to start with what we know.
Okay. So essentially taking an inventory. So this is what I'm good at. This is what I know how to do. This is what makes me feel better. This is what helped me out of other situations in the past. And then doing them.
Right. And being kind and, I guess, tender with yourself if they aren't helping you, because we can always try something else.
Okay. So how do I get some ideas about what those something else things might be?
Well, I think one thing that comes to mind is, and I certainly see this in my daytime job, how how to bring structure to your day.
Okay.
And to look at what you can change, right, within your day, where you can do something to affect the outcome that you're hoping for. So in other words, it's about getting in touch with what you can control and kind of separating that from what you can't.
Okay. And it also sounds like having a goal in mind. So this is what isn't working for me, and what do I want to see instead? So I sit here all day by myself. I have no one that I talk with. I have no one that I see. So my goal is to make one connection. And so there's lots of things out there right now, like friendship lines or loneliness lines, and people can Google those. There's certainly websites like Meetup or Hangout or that kind of stuff where people can make connections that way, connecting via social media, those kinds of things. I've recommended that people find one relationship that maybe has been problematic, or maybe that has they've had some distance in, and they're wanting to make a reconnection with that person. So there's some things that I've recommended, I know. So do you have other ideas?
Well, I think it's important to practice cognitive flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, for people. I know that's a term. I'll explain that. Prior to this pandemic, I think we sometimes get in our routine. We have our sets of expectations. We know how life will go, kind of what to expect. Mm-hmm. And right now we're trying to figure out what's our new normal. Mm-hmm. And so things won't always go the way that we had hoped they would. Mm-hmm. And so learning to be flexible and kind of adjust our thinking. Mm-hmm. And I think with that, it's being a little more patient with ourselves and others, and it's okay to not feel like you have all the answers. Yeah. Yeah. So how we do things, we need to be a little more flexible.
Okay. So what are some things that people can, I know you've talked before when we've had these discussions about having some list of ideas that people can turn to.
Well, I think before I had mentioned it about the book that I wrote, Reflections from the Past, Life Lessons for Better Living. Mm-hmm. One thing I like about that book is it does outline like 93 tips. Mm-hmm. that are kind of a page each. Mm-hmm. There's another book by called 101 Mindful Ways to Build Resilience. Mm-hmm. by Donald Altman. And again, it's a pretty easy read, but it's got, short, quick tips that people can keep in mind.
What's a quick tip that you can think of?
There's this one skill that I call push the eject button. So pushing the eject button is about recognizing within ourselves and our mind that this negative piece of information is trying to find its way within us.
Right.
And say, nope, I'm not going to give that my power.
And so do you have any other thoughts or tips for people on how to manage right now during the current pandemic, which has really kind of turned everyone's lives upside down in one way or another?
One of the things that I think is key is to try to stay in today. Mm-hmm. We are dealing with some ambiguity, mm-hmm. and with uncertain times brings people worry and stress. And if we get too far out, we start becoming concerned about what does the future look like. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we don't look ahead, but again, a part of reducing that anxiety and depression and worry is to kind of bring us back to today. Where can I affect change in my life today? What can I work on to help me have the best day possible?
Okay. Yeah. So once you've done the inventory of, what you've done right before, what's worked for you in the past and helped you to move through a difficult situation, and you've been able to analyze, okay, well, how am I going to do that now? How can I incorporate that strategy into what I'm doing right now in this moment? And then also looking at new ways, maybe around that same problem, or things that maybe you can do with the resources you currently have.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, taking a look at what you were saying, and just staying really present in the moment, trying not to get caught up in what might happen in the future and where things might go. Or
I'm a big believer in the practice of self-compassion.
mm-hmm.
And for those who may not know what that is, that is a practice of where we give ourselves the same kindness, tenderness, forgiveness, acceptance amidst our imperfections.
Mm-hmm.
I think many of us find it easier to be compassionate towards others, and we maybe not so much towards ourselves. And I bring self-compassion up because this is hard stuff that people are going through. And it hurts. And when we feel hurt, we can bring tenderness and compassion to them.
Mm-hmm. So what about once this is all over and, we do have a new normal at that point? No one really knows at this point what that's going to look like. But, how does someone then display resiliency in a way that's different than what they are doing currently right now during this?
Well, I think, when we're on the other side of something and the immediate urgency has passed, we have an opportunity to kind of pause and reflect. And taking a look at situations help us learn, like how have I changed because of that event or situation? And what we hope is that if we can go there with ourselves or friends, family members who help us, we will emerge with either stronger skills or a new way of doing things, and we'll be able to stand back and go, yeah, that was really hard, but I've grown from that in ways that I might not have.
Yeah. So looking at it as an opportunity for growth versus this untenable challenge that I couldn't get through.
Right. Or, how do I want to live differently? So are there things I've learned from this and realized about myself that I'm like, I now know a little bit more about myself that I want to make some changes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so there is that. Another thing that I thought about was perseverance and grit. Mm-hmm. Because again, like you said, we don't really know what's ahead. Mm-hmm. I do believe things will get better, but we don't know it kind of the pathway it'll take. So there will probably be a sense of kind of staying with this for the long haul, in helping us get back on track or to the place that we would like to be.
Yeah. So looking at lessons learned about ourselves, about our community, it might offer us a way to do something different, not only for our family or our immediate range of influence, but also for our community at large. Maybe there was something that we identified during this time, or that we can be looking for during this time. Say, this wasn't working well in our community or in our household, but this is something we can do different if the situation ever occurs again, or even if it doesn't. This is a contingency plan we can have, or this is how we can build a better family system or a better community system to help people. And so looking for different ideas and ways that we can inspire change within ourselves and others, sounds like.
Yeah. And, it is going through difficult times, whatever the situation is, are those moments where we do have an opportunity to grow, make changes, do things differently. I guess sometimes a little bit of personal pain kind of pushes us in that direction because we're out of our comfort zone.
Yeah. When it sounds like really recognizing those successes is something to not get down on ourselves, like you're saying, having grace for ourselves for those things that maybe we didn't do so well or haven't done so well up to this point, but then really paying attention to what we have done well or what we are doing well in the moment, and then capitalizing on that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. Well, did you have any other last thoughts for us before we go?
Trying to encourage people to work on our self-care, and what, again, this kind of comes back to what we can control. But again, the thing we can do is address how we treat ourselves.
Yeah, I know that can be hard, especially I know there are a lot of people that are in the same situation that I am, which is, I'm still working full time. I have kiddos that are home that I'm having to help with their schoolwork. So I'm having to take time out of my day to then get them started or sit with them while they're doing that. And so I've taken on the role of teacher and mentor and parent, and still having to function in my professional life. And still be, a wife and a daughter, and, take care of everything and everyone. And it's been a challenge. It really has. And so, finding enough hours in the day to do everything is difficult. And so I appreciate that statement to take a moment. And even if it's locking yourself in the bathroom for a few minutes and just getting a little bit of peace, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be drastic, but just acknowledging, okay, this is something I'm doing for myself, or I'm going to just, as I listen to you and all the roles that you are in, I'm like, that is something to celebrate.
Yeah.
Right? And it may or may not feel that way in the moment, but when we get on the other side and we have the opportunity, like I say, to reflect, like, wow, I was doing a lot. Yeah. Yay me. I mean, but I mean, that's where we grow, and that's how we learn, when we're kind of stretched in ways that maybe we hadn't anticipated.
Yeah. And we're all doing that right now. Everyone is facing challenges, and everyone is having to come up with a new way of figuring out life and coping. And so, I just want to take this moment to say, you are doing a wonderful job to everyone out there. There's going to be challenges, and we're all doing the best we can. We're all trying to support one another. And so, reach out to your support system. If you don't have a support system, this is a great time to get one. This is a great time to buffer up those resources in your life. And for additional resources, you can also visit Dr. Stutzner's website, where you can get lots of information on resiliency and forgiveness and self-compassion. And so, Dr. Stutzner, what is that web address?
Okay, the web address is therapeutic-healing-disability.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.